Venezuela's ambassador to the United Nations, Samuel Moncada, appeared before the National Assembly in Caracas to expose the United States' plans for the invasion of the country, recently revealed in a book by former Secretary of Defense Mark Esper. The electoral authorities of Colombia established the international observation missions that will accompany the presidential elections on May 29th. The African Union leaders are meeting on Friday and Saturday in Malabo, Equatorial Guinea for 2 consecutive extraordinary summits as the continent contends with humanitarian crises, terrorism, and military coups. Hi, this is From the South. I am your news anchor, Diego Martin, from the teleSUR studios in Havana. We begin with the news. Now, the permanent ambassador of Venezuela to the United Nations, Samuel Moncada, attended the National Assembly in Caracas on Thursday to expose the invasion plans and assassination attempts against the president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, organized by the administration of Donald Trump and the Venezuelan opposition. During his intervention in the hemicycle of the Legislative Palace, the diplomat referred to the publications made by former Secretary of Defense of the United States, Mark Esper. In his recent book, Esper detailed Washington's plans implemented jointly with the Venezuelan opposition leader Juan Guaidó against the democratic stability of the South American country. Moncada recalled that since 2019 within the United Nations, Venezuela has denounced these stabilizing actions against its people and warned that the attempts of economic and military attacks are still present within the White House.
What is one of the most serious problems of our nation? All the economic and military aggressions that Venezuela has suffered in the last 4 years, not only by foreign powers, but painfully with the help of a group of Venezuelan political leaders who collaborated with plans to destroy Venezuela.
The Vice President of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez, stated during her participation in the Eurasian Economic Forum that her country has a great exporting potential of multiple resources for the Eurasian Economic Union. During her speech, the Venezuelan diplomat emphasized that the natural resources the Bolivarian nation possesses to export to the different nations of the world include fruits, sea products, cocoa, meat, and other goods of the nation's agro-industry. On the other hand, the Vice President highlighted the country increased its exports of non-traditional products by 76%. In this context, the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean reported that Caracas ranks 8th in Latin America and the Caribbean in terms of exports increase. In Argentina, the third Parliament of Indigenous Women and Diversities for the Proper Living, held in the province of Salta, ended on Wednesday. More than 250 women from 21 indigenous peoples nations from Argentina, Chile, Bolivia, and Mexico met in the town of Chicuana for 4 days to share experiences from their territories and build a common agenda with the focus on the fight against terroricide and sexual and racial violence towards these communities. In this sense, they agreed to present a demand to the Argentinian state to put an end to chineo, a colonial practice that consists of the rape of indigenous girls by Creole men, for which they demand that it be declared a hate crime.
So that altogether today we decide how we are going to definitely remove the chineo from the territories and from the minds, because this is not cultural, this is colonial. This comes from the ships as the terror, is that the white man steps on the indigenous territories. Until today, he continues to condemn us.
On Thursday, as part of the bilateral meetings between Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel and the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Ralph Gonsalves, and the head of the 21st Summit of Heads of State and Government of ALPA TCP that will be held on Friday, the leader of the Unity Labour Party was bestowed with the José Martí Award on behalf of the Cuban people and government.
I accept this esteemed honor with gratitude and humility on behalf of our Caribbean civilization, its Vincentian component, and the multitudes of comrades who over a prolonged period have been in unbreakable solidarity in quest of a far better life for our people, for humanity, free of exploitation, oppression, hegemony, or imperial dictates, in peace, security, and prosperity.
The organization New Conscient denounced the alleged involvement of Western embassies in the climate of insecurity in Haiti and denounced a sit-in outside the French embassy in Port-au-Prince. The group, also known as We Are Aware, stated that the country suffers an escalation in violence. Ambassadors from various countries, as well as representatives from the United Nations and the Organization of American States, have remained silent. The socio-political organization also criticizes the government's inaction in the face of growing insecurity and the creation of armed groups that have already claimed hundreds of lives and forced tens of thousands to leave their homes without taking a place of refuge. Gangs have grown in strength in Haiti in recent years, increasing kidnappings and violence with virtually no police resistance. We're going to take a short break now. Please join us again after this. Hi, and welcome back to From the South. In Colombia, the establishment of the International Observation Mission for next Sunday's presidential elections took place on Thursday. The event was attended by the Minister of the Interior, Daniel Palacios, the Registry, Alexander Vega, the President of the National Electoral Council, Cesar Abreu, among other personalities. During the ceremony, the Registry, Alexander Vega, informed that some of these international delegations have a technical nature and have accompanied the different simulations that have been carried out. The official also emphasized that these elections will be the most closely watched in history and reiterated that all guarantees are in place for citizens and political forces. The National Registry of Colombia announced that all guarantees are in place for the development of the presidential elections, which will be accompanied by more than 27 international organizations. The Registry, Alexander Vega, stated that the 8 accredited international electoral observation missions will be able to give an impartial opinion amid concepts that will help the electoral process in the country, and he also highlighted that they will have biometric tools and other advanced software. For their part, authorities of the National Electoral Council urged political sectors that are developing a narrative of alleged electoral fraud to be responsible and not to generate a climate of opinion that will contribute to destabilizing the electoral environment. Russian President Vladimir Putin addressed via video conference the plenary session of the first Eurasian Economic Forum in Kyrgyzstan. The forum on the subject of Eurasian economic integration in the area of global shifts and new investment opportunities opened with the participation of more than 2,000 representatives. In his intervention via video conference, the Russian head of state said that those nations interested in harming his country by imposing sanctions harm only themselves. In this sense, Putin explained that his administration took the necessary measures in key sectors to protect national sovereignty against systematic Western aggressions. At the same time, he advocated the development of a great Eurasian association, which, according to his criteria, could become a civilization project that would change the world politically and economically in structure. In Ukraine, Russian authorities found a mass grave in the city of Mariupol on territory formerly controlled by Kiev's forces. Russia's investigative committee said it is gathering evidence to establish criminal cases following the discovery of the mass grave. According to authorities, the investigations will determine the identity of the deceased, the causes and circumstances of death, and furthermore identify those responsible. In this sense, Konstantin Ivashchenko, mayor of the city, assured that the pit was found in one of the cemeteries of Mariupol. Witnesses claim there are hundreds of bodies in the pit. The Russian armed forces opened 2 humanitarian corridors for the evacuation of foreign ships from Ukrainian ports in the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov. The Russian Defense Ministry reported that passages are being opened daily with a safe route for ships to leave Ukrainian ports that have been blocked for weeks by the military conflict. Moscow said in a statement that about 70 foreign ships from 16 countries remained blocked in 6 ports, threatened by mines laid by Kyiv in the surrounding waters. Former United States Secretary of State Henry Kissinger participated virtually in the World Economic Forum held in Davos, Switzerland. During his speech, Kissinger said that if Ukraine does not restart negotiations with Russia, it could have disastrous consequences for the long-term stability of Europe, and stressed that a peace agreement should be reached.
The outcome of any war is a peace settlement, but the nature of that peace settlement will determine whether the combatants remain permanent adversaries or whether it's possible to fit them into an international framework. About 8 years ago, when the idea of membership of Ukraine in NATO came up, I wrote an article in which I said that the ideal outcome would be if Ukraine could be constituted as a neutral kind of state, as a bridge between Russia and Europe.
In the same context, Kissinger recommended a return to the pre-conflict status quo at the same time that there should be no further escalation of the conflict.
In my view, movement towards negotiations and negotiations on peace need to begin the next 2 months. Ideally, the dividing line should return to the status quo.
The countries of the BRICS group, during a virtual conference, reaffirmed their willingness to take action to counteract the unilateral sanctions of the West as well as the disinformation surrounding the subject. According to a statement issued by the foreign ministries of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, there is a mutual interest in expanding contacts and exchanges between the countries to strengthen cooperation in the field of supporting information. The BRICS group takes this decision in a context of increasing information pressure from the West, including fake news and the introduction of unjustified restrictions on the professional activities of the media. We have more news coming up after this short break. Please stay with us. Hi, and welcome back. The African Union leaders are meeting Friday and Saturday in Malabo, Equatorial Guinea for 2 consecutive extraordinary summits as the continent contends with humanitarian crises, terrorism, and military coups. Around 20 heads of state as well as donors are expected to raise funds at the African Union's first extraordinary humanitarian summit. According to the African Union, of the more than 30 million internally displaced Africans, more than 10 million are children aged under 15. A report by the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization said that around 282 million of Africa's 1.4 billion inhabitants are underfed, an increase of 49 million on 2019 levels.
According to the data registered by humanitarian agencies, Africa today counts some 113 million people in need of food aid, of which 48 million are refugees, asylum seekers, and internally displaced persons. An urgent response to the need is necessary to preserve what remains of these people's human dignity.
Zimbabwe hosted an international summit on African elephant management and the impact of the ban on ivory trade, which wildlife authorities in the country are urging that be lifted. Wildlife representatives argued that Zimbabwe and other countries with large herds are protecting vast stockpiles of ivory they can't sell to raise funds for either conservation work or to support communities affected by growing elephant numbers. The country will this week press a drive to legalize the ivory trade, inviting officials from 50 nations to meet in a national park that's a beacon of success in protecting elephants. The African nation sought the support of the European Union to sell off around $600 million worth of ivory it has accumulated due to the global ban on the sale of tusks. International trade in ivory has been banned since 1989 under the Convention of International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora.
Presented target. Unfortunately, when we go to sites, like COP19 and COP18, the last COP, they were not allowed in if you compare, you find the international organizations are actually allowed in, they participate, their views are taken on board. But see, what have they to do with the animals? Who is supposed to be the key figure? The key figure are communities, and we have been pushing and pushing for that agenda, unfortunately without.
So, which means that these communities share their living space with wildlife, sometimes with dangerous wildlife such as lions, elephants, and that sometimes they contribute actively to the conservation of these animals. So, if there are decisions to be made about the future of these elephants, about the trade, then it's just important that community voice is heard and communities actively participate in this process.
11 newborn babies died in a hospital blaze in the western Senegalese city of Tivaouane, President Macky Sall reported on Thursday. According to information released by the Health Minister Abdoulaye Diouf, the tragedy occurred at Mame Abdou Aziz Hospital and the transport hub of Tivaouane and was caused by a short circuit. Minister Sarr said the maternity unit was equipped to take care of 13 babies. The head of state expressed his deepest condolences to the families and mothers of the 11 newborn. In the meantime, World Health Organization Chief Tedros Ghebreyesus also sent his deepest condolences to the parents and families of the babies who lost their lives in the tragic accident.
This situation is very deplorable. Imagine that a fire has killed so many babies because of the lack of organization and irresponsibility of the hospital authorities. We wanted to recover the bodies of the babies, but the director of the hospital told us that this was impossible because an investigation is underway and it is up to the prosecutor to make decisions. The whole population is devastated by what has just happened in this hospital.
On Thursday, Sri Lankan President Gotabaya Rajapaksa pleaded for international assistance to help his country face its worst economic crisis ever. Sri Lankan President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, speaking at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland on video conference, said his country needs immediate help to be able to import essential medicines, food and fuel to the country. Reportedly, at present, Sri Lanka lacks the financial wherewithal to import necessities and pay its debts. People are enduring shortages of food and fuel, power outages and other scarcities. The crisis has fueled political turmoil and protesters are demanding the president's resignation.
The last several months have been extremely difficult for Sri Lanka. We are presently undergoing a severe economic crisis that has profoundly impacted the lives of all Sri Lankans, resulting in social unrest. The virtual shutting down of the tourism industry and the sharp decline in inward remittances from expatriate workers due to COVID-19 in the past 2 years, and increasing inflation due to other events combined with Sri Lanka's high outstanding debt obligations to cause a severe financial crisis.
Israeli intelligence officials claim responsibility for the assassination of Iranian Colonel Hassan Sayed-Judai in a communication with the United States. The revelation confirms Tehran's allegations on the matter. Intelligence failed to reveal further details of the assassination of Colonel Judai in the heart of Iran's capital. Israel and the United States are being blamed. According to intelligence information on real-time targets, this has been the most difficult task of recreating the colonel's assassination. In this regard, the government of Iran will retaliate for the death of the Revolutionary Guard commander. We've come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at teleSUR English. You can also join us on social media for all the latest news. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For teleSUR English, I'm Dio Martin. Thank you for watching.